At the time of this filming, we are at the very introduction of the implementation of federal healthcare reform that can ultimately deal with lifetime caps and pre-existing conditions. So those have not been fully implemented. Across the United States, these things are still varying by state. So private insurance plans cover various things based on the contract that they provide. And so one plan may cover X number of therapy sessions, another plan may cover more or less than that. So the first thing you have to do is look at the scope of benefits that exist for whatever commercial or private plan may exist. And there will be limits and caps on that, hence the earlier discussions we've had about discharge planners and such things. So the first thing is a very good awareness of what the current benefit package may cover, what limits may exist, and what appeal procedures may exist in there. And a good social worker family advocate is going to support the family in getting that information, be aware of it, and use that as a tool when dealing with systems providing care. Now, there can be situations where you have more than one private insurance plan, workman's comp, and whatever, and so that guideline about understanding the scope of benefits in the private sector for whatever plans may exist applies to all of them. A second element, and by the way, I do include Medicare almost in the private insurance arena because it's very similar to that. A second arena comes in when you're dealing with Medicaid as a co-insurance or a secondary insurance to the private plan. And this is very critical. Many individuals can obtain Medicaid while they have private insurance or workman's comp coverage. It's not that hard to do. It occurs very, very frequently. Medicaid is a different type of insurance in that it is an entitlement. It can coexist with the other insurances. Medicaid is always the last insurance in. And so no matter what you're doing, Medicaid is always the final insurance to be considered. When you coordinate benefits between Medicaid and other insurances, it's very common in many states for Medicaid to pay any co-payments that may apply for private insurance. And in most states, Medicaid will pay the premium, deductible, and co-insurance or co-payment for anything involving Medicare. So this is a very valuable concept. It's a service that can broaden access and complement existing coverages and benefits, but also it'll pay for things that private insurance may not. For example, not every insurance policy today may pay for certain types of durable medical equipment or certain types of therapies. Medicaid in general has a broader coverage concept than these, and so if a private insurance or Medicare has reached its limits or caps or doesn't pay for something, Medicaid can be a very good asset in terms of coming in and supplementing the private stuff or actually paying for it from the very beginning of an issue where a person may need that type of service.
So what I hear you saying is even though you have private insurance, you should apply for the appropriate government programs.
Absolutely. These programs can coexist. They're designed to coexist together, and again, for the reasons I've already mentioned, they can be a very good source of coverage and benefits. In many instances, people with injuries have to stop working, there's economic issues, and so it's not unusual to have people actually ultimately end up not being able to continue to access the private insurance for certain things. So Medicaid can come in initially as a secondary insurance, but in some instances ends up as the primary insurance. And again, the concept here is an advocate to make sure people get access to good health care, get the services they can, and then build into further life in the home and community.
And with a serious or catastrophic brain injury, you can't do that early enough no matter how much coverage you have in the private insurance. Isn't that so?
That's absolutely correct. And again, something to really think about is Medicaid is a very broad-based program, generally applied through some state agencies. And there are various ways individuals can obtain Medicaid. And Medicaid generally has some income base to it, but some of the bases can be very liberal, more liberal than what you may think. And so good research on a state-by-state basis can reveal exactly what those income and asset limits may be. And this is where you get into that planning element so that you can get the services in there, make sure they're appropriate, and use them to build on when you're building the midterm and long-term plans, generally involving discharge from the facilities, or actually services in facilities, and long-term plans, again, in the home and community.
You know, today, under private insurances, you mentioned something earlier about caps. And that's caps on insurance, and that means the most amount over someone's lifetime that a private
Monetary caps.
Yeah, that a monetary caps that a private insurer will pay. So, for example, in some policies, we're seeing $1 million lifetime caps. In the 21st century, in the second decade, with a traumatic brain injury, does it take a long time to go through that monetary cap of $1 million?
Sadly, not at all. We've seen that get drawn down in a matter of months in some of the more catastrophic injuries involving physical care and long-term stay in acute facilities. It's not uncommon to encounter that.
Apply early and apply often.
Apply early and make sure you apply for everything you're eligible for, and you'll make it much better in the long term.
Thank you, Joe.